Ladies and gentlemen,
wrestling has more than one royal family.
I am my kingdom! I am my kingdom!
Welcome to the Kingdom of Honor. This is your host, the expatriate Zanman, Shane Sabunia here, along with my good buddy Jeff. Are you there, Jeff?
Hello.
Yay, you can hear me.
Thank God. Wait, no. I don't know if that's a good thing. I don't know that that's a good thing.
Thank Klaus.
Did you... I know we're going to talk about Dominion. We're going to talk about what we talked about a little bit last week and a little Ring of Honor stuff. But did you see the blocks have been announced for the G1?
I saw Ryan mention that on my Twitter feed. I did not look at the blocks yet, though.
All right. Well, in Block A, and pay attention because there's a couple of names missing from this that kind of shocking. Block A, we got Okada, ZSJ.
Wait, is it 10-man blocks again?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yep, 10 men.
Okay, so Okada, ZSJ, go ahead.
Tanahashi.
Okay, Tanahashi's always in the A block, so.
Yeah, Kota Ibushi.
Wow.
Evil,
Okay.
Sonata, Bad Luck Fale, Lance Archer, Will Ospreay, and Kenta.
Oh, Ospreay's in the G1.
Yep. Now here in Block B, you got Naito, Ishii, Juice Robinson, Toru Yano, Goto, Jay White, Jeff Cobb, Shingo Takagi, Taichi, and Jon Moxley.
Okay.
Do you see the one big name that's missing from this?
Yoshihashi?
Well, no, not Yoshihashi. But a certain lunatic named Suzuki.
Oh, I did not notice that.
He's not in it at all this year.
Darn, that's too bad. I was really looking forward to seeing him.
Oh, come on. Just the commentary that Don Callis brings whenever Suzuki is around.
Yeah, that's one of your joys in life, not mine.
I also heard that Davey Boy Smith Jr. Is no longer affiliated with NJPW.
Oh.
He's solely with MLW now.
Oh, interesting. And he actually won another organization's championship over the weekend too.
Oh, did he?
Like North American Wrestling or something like that.
Yeah, there's a couple like that. I saw that Moxley's been doing some independent stuff too, like that, just showing up at random promotions.
Yeah, I think he. I read that he turned out that he answered an open challenge from, the what are they called? The free agents.
Yeah.
These are the realest guys in the room, and then also I think he either has scheduled or already had a match against Pentagon too.
Yeah, and his match against the former realist guys was basically just him destroying them both.
Oh, was it? I didn't watch it.
Yeah, he ended the match with both of them receiving a dirty deeds or whatever he's calling it now.
Well, in NJPW, he's calling it the Death Rider.
Yeah, well, maybe that's what he's calling it then.
Could be.
But I was a little shocked to see Suzuki not in the G1, and I was a little shocked to see Davey Boy no longer with NJPW. It kind of ruins one of my favorite all-time tag teams.
Well, it doesn't ruin one of your all-time favorite tag teams. It just puts them up for now.
Well, yeah, I guess that is true.
You still have all your memories of them from, when you really enjoyed them, and they've been kind of wasted in NJPW the last 3 years anyway.
Yeah, since they had their feud with War Raiders and or was it War Machine? I never remember. I don't even know what the hell they are now. Some Viking Experience or something like that.
I think they're the Viking Raiders now.
It's just and they've changed their names to Eric and someone else. It's not Hanson and Rowe anymore.
No, it's like, I can't remember what the other guy's name is. Smorgasbord or something.
Why would you? Why? I don't get it. I don't get it at all. But regardless, KES really hasn't done much since their whole feud. I mean, they had that one run last year in World Tag League, but that was short-lived.
Right, exactly.
Other than that, they haven't really been used since War Raiders and or War Machine and God. That whole feud that they had with all three of them.
Are you going to get me started on God this early in the episode?
Yeah, because we're going to end up talking about them soon anyway.
Okay, fuck God. I'm so sick of them. I'm sick of them, of those no talent hacks, always holding the tag team titles. They're now 5-time champions, and they should have dropped them to Evil and Sonata again. But still, they can't push the young guys. They got to keep the belts on these fucking idiots that can't even work. And not only that, but they're also the Ring of Honor tag team champions. So yay, double shitheads.
The part that really annoys me is the fact that they're being called the greatest NJPW tag champs of all time. And I guess they're not, that's not commonplace, but that's something that Kevin Kelly was bringing up. But normally, I love Kevin Kelly and what he does. He's one of the best play-by-play guys out there right now. But that was like, I couldn't believe what I was hearing when he was saying that.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. I agree.
Before we get into the meet of today, and I guess you haven't even really told us what the meet of today is yet, but I do want to give a shout out to Ryan Evans for being our very first Patreon. And speaking of Patreon, make sure you head to it. It's patreon.com/Kingdom of Honor. We've got all of our archive shows. We've got some of our fun new stuff, and we're reviewing Marvel Thor God of Thunder series right now, and we've got our very first Desert Island series called Wrecked with Wrestlers on there as well. So head over to Patreon, sign up for a way to support your team here, and give it a listen.
And just to whet your appetite a little bit, this coming week, I'm not sure if we're doing it Wednesday or Thursday this week, but we haven't really talked about that yet, Jeff. But we're going to be doing Eddie Guerrero.
It depends on when I can get these 8 matches whittled down.
Oh, true.
I should have it done by Wednesday. I'm going to kind of binge watch tomorrow night. But, I mean, we can talk about that later. Either Wednesday or Thursday. It doesn't matter to me.
Okay.
I guess if I don't have them all done yet, I'm trying to kind of cross some off the list, just going looking at them before I watch them. But I have a feeling I'm going to watch a lot of Eddie Guerrero matches over the next 2 days.
Yeah, and I have a feeling you'll have some tag matches on there when I didn't have any tag matches on my list. So.
Nope, didn't have a one.
And I have one of my 4 left to watch. I still have the ladder match with Ray left to watch.
This is one of the few times where I guess I can't say one of the few, but this might be one of the times where vignettes are going to make my list.
Well, Eddie Guerrero has one of the greatest promos of all time in WWE, and he didn't say a fucking word.
Yep. His promo where he came back and basically declared himself a heel.
The one I'm talking about is when he just stomps. He has Rey Mysterio's mask and he's just stomping out in the middle of the ring and glaring at the audience as they boo at him.
Yeah. But some of that Los Guerreros stuff was humorous. I guess I don't want to ruin too much of it, but we'll talk about it on either Wednesday or Thursday this week, and it'll be up either Wednesday or Thursday this week.
Yes. So stay tuned for when that will be, and we'll let you know on Twitter and Facebook.
And I guess YouTube now.
And yeah, this show is going up on YouTube right now as we speak. So that's pretty.
I
awesome.
wonder what the video is that's going to be up there.
You wonder what?
I wonder what the video is going to be that's up there.
I don't know. We're not going to be putting one, are we?
Not that I know of.
Okay.
So I guess we'll find out when after the show's done, and I go look at YouTube to see what's up there.
I guess we will. So, I've been following. I don't know if you have or not, Jeff, but I've been following the Road to Fighter Fest on the Nightmare Family YouTube channel. You know, they had the Road to Double or Nothing, and they have the Road to Fighter Fest, and I think they're doing actually a lot better job with the videos for Fighter Fest than they did for the Road to Double or Nothing stuff. Have you watched those at all?
I haven't had a chance to. It is on my list of stuff I need to get done, and I just have not had a chance.
Okay. Yeah, but I think they're just been a lot more focused on character this time. You know, they've been talking at, you know, there was Darby Allin on there was Sean Spears on there, there was Joey Janela, and basically they're all talking about they're talking about their characters and what's going on and what's influencing them going on towards their matches. And Cody has been on there a bit, and he actually said something about being probably pretty good as a coach or something like that. So that could be setting up a Cody Sean Spears match for the future. Hopefully not at all out, but in the future. And speaking of All Out, Jeff, do you know who got tickets for All Out?
You?
Yeah, me.
I know it wasn't me.
So I really don't want to be in the audience and see. I mean, I'm gonna love being in the audience no matter what they do, but I really hope it's not Cody versus Sean Spears there.
Yeah, that wouldn't be as fun.
No, it wouldn't.
I know that night I'm going to be here watching a triple header of wrestling.
Are you not considering that night?
I doubt it. And considering how much there actually is on.
Yeah.
I just.
Go ahead.
It's like 15 hours of straight wrestling. It's like watching Mania weekend.
It is crazy. I mean we've had those weekends this year. You know, we had the, at what was it at Wrestle Kingdom. There's Wrestle Kingdom, and the next day it was the NWA pop-up event, which you can now see for $10 4 or 5 months later. And then there was the next day was Impact's homecoming event, and then then there was the card weekend with all that kind of stuff.
Well, that was WrestleMania weekend.
It was Supercard weekend. We don't do WrestleMania on this show.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And let's see, I want to say there's another weekend that was like that too, but not. And then
Supercard. The Supercard weekend had the NXT show. It had didn't it have the MLW show too, Battle Riot?
It did. Yep.
So I mean that was a packed weekend.
And it also had the RPW, the Rev Pro show, and then this coming, July 6th and 7th. So July 6th is going to be the first time ever that the G1 Climax starts in the United States, and then the next day in the same city in Dallas is going to be Slammiversary.
Jesus.
For Impact, and now on August 31st we find out that it's going to be Double or Nothing. I'm not Double or Nothing, but All Out in Chicago, and then the RPW and NJPW co-produced show Royal Quest in Great Britain the same night as NXT UK's second pay-per-view, second takeover. So yeah, they're really kind of booking the rest of the weekends back, fully this year.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, I guess it's not like they know the upcoming schedule and where they're going to be, so it's not, they're booking these out months and months ahead of time. So I guess it's not like, they really realize that they're booking at the exact same weekends that other shows are, or the exact same nights that other companies are booking theirs. But it's just more of just a ridiculously exciting time to be a wrestling fan, because there are options everywhere.
Do you really think it's true that they didn't know? Because I mean, Triple H came on after Takeover and he announced about this British show, and he said, regardless of what other people may think, this has been in the making for 4 or 5 months. we've had it on the schedule. This is not in reaction to anything else, like some people would say. So giving really two subtle references to AEW right there. But I don't know that I really believe that, because I think that they probably knew AEW was going to be running a show the same on Labor Day weekend, and they just decided to book one at the same time anyway.
I don't know. Simply because they're booking these things in some cases over a year out, depending on the match, depending on where it's going to, or the pay-per-view, or where it's going to be. They're booking their events almost a year ahead of time. So it's hard to, and Labor Day weekend is, it is a good weekend to have an event. So it makes sense that they would go for it and not know that somebody else was.
I guess, but I just I have a hard time believing that they didn't think that they were going to try to run an anniversary show on that day, because I thought they were going to all along.
Well, it's when did that would have made sense, because that's when they did it last year. So it would have made sense that's that. But then again, too, well, I guess if he had it booked 4 months out, 4 months ago, that would have been February. He knew that the company was in existence by then.
Right.
And of course, like you said, All In was, even though it's a Ring of Honor property, it is technically the very first AEW show. So considering 90% of the people that were on that card are in AEW now. It does make sense that would be their anniversary show.
Yeah, and that's what I thought they were going to do personally. But whatever. Either way, they're all running at the same time. I'd be surprised if that doesn't hurt AEW's buy rate. But at the same time, they had 72,000 people in line trying to buy tickets, trying to buy like 10,000 tickets. So
it's going to depend. It's going to depend on their momentum at the time. It sounds like they are listening to fans and fans' reactions to Double or Nothing. I mean, you weren't the only person that was upset that there seemed to be a lack of storytelling. A lot of people were upset because they didn't know where to find the show. A lot of people were upset at the price, and they came out immediately and said, "Here's where the next show is going to be. And we're going to give it to you for free." So what people were saying, sudden now onto AEW and being the elite, I've just seen kind of snippets of it. They seem to be working on storytelling in these weekly shows now too. Maybe they're fans and changing with the fans right now.
Yeah, I agree with that. And what I was saying though is basically, like, if you've already got WWE Network and NJPW World, and you can get those shows for free, are you going to pay $40 to $50 to watch, $40, $50, $60 to watch All Out? That's what I was thinking.
I guess it depends on when you, if you were going to do it anyway. Because let's put it this way: we don't have to watch NXT UK live. We don't have to watch the NJPW show live, because it's in their archives immediately after the show's over. Mm-hmm. So like me, if I want to watch all 3 shows in one night, I can watch All Out. And then when that's done, I can flip over to the WWE Network and watch the UK thing, because I'm sure that'll be done before All Out is. And then I can flip over to Japan and watch what they're doing.
It's just why I never really understood the Monday Night Wars. After a certain point, because there came a time, I think shortly after the NWO started, maybe I'm a little bit off on that, but when
they started doing the replays,
where Nitro would replay itself right after the fact. So even if you were recording the shows to watch the next day, you could still, you could either watch Raw and then watch Nitro right afterwards, or you could watch like the first hour of Nitro, then the next 2 hours of Raw, and then watch the rest of Nitro later on. Or you could just record one show or the other and watch the other one the next day or whatever. I mean, there was really I mean, I know very few. I don't know. I can't think of anybody that I know that didn't watch both shows anyway.
Right.
You know.
And I mean, even before that, and back then it was only VCRs that you were able to record on, but you could record a channel you weren't watching. So I'd watch Nitro live, and then record Raw and watch Raw later in the week,
Right.
or the next day, or right afterward, depending on if I had to work the next day or not.
Right, because when Nitro first started, they were both 1 hour shows, so it wasn't like
Yep.
you were taking up your entire night. You just watch one, the other one gets done recording, you watch the other one. You know.
Yep. Yeah, and even once they switched to 2 hours, it was a good. When Nitro switched to 2 hours, it was almost a good year later before Raw did.
Right.
So I mean, even for that first year of the NWO invasions, you could still watch, what was going on both channels. And if you didn't, you missed some great stuff out of Goldust. I'll say that.
Yeah, and you know my. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was just gonna say Goldust and Mankind, because I haven't gotten a blog up in a while. I've been busy with other things, mainly the life. But
Life.
what I've been watching of the early parts of the Monday Night Wars, I've gotten a few of the different blogs up there, and I will say this, that the best thing on TV, the whole NWO thing's going on, and Nitro's giving you the best wrestling, but the best thing that is actually on TV and what I'm watching is Goldust and Mankind. They're better. Those two characters are better than anything else that is being put out in wrestling at that time.
Okay.
From what I've seen, just the promos. I watched a complete garbage episode of Raw, and the only thing that saved it was the Mankind match and the promo by Goldust. Both of those were 5 stars. The rest of it was negative, half stars, 0. It was just complete and utter garbage. And then on the other side, on the WCW side, you've got the intrigue with the NWO and Scott Hall and everything. But to be honest, Steven Regal is the best part of Nitro at that time. The promos he's cutting, the work he's putting in the ring, the matches that he puts on, every single time he's on there, I'm glued to the TV.
You forgot to mention his facial expressions, because they're the best.
Oh yeah, and some of his promos are just gold. Just absolute gold. He says some things that, and this, you got to realize, this is 2 to 3 years before The Rock really exploded, before the whole Attitude Era exploded, and the stuff that Regal was doing at that time, the promos he was cutting, would have fit right in with something The Rock did.
Yeah, and I loved his I just loved his complete disdain for having to wrestle Sting.
Yep. Yeah. I think my favorite all-time William or Steven Regal promo was before Daylight Savings Time, I think it was, when Gene Okerlund asked him if he was going to set his clock back, and he goes, "Hell yeah, I'm going to set my clock back. That way I can wake up an hour earlier and hate you longer."
That's great.
It's just one of probably my favorite all-time promo by him.
I love that.
It's just he was just so good. He was so good in the ring. He was so good on the mic that it's almost a shame to see that he never really got to that upper echelon like he deserved to be.
You know what? If memory serves, he almost got there. I want to say like 90. No, it couldn't have been that early. So I'm thinking like 2001, maybe it was. And then he ended up going on, having to go to rehab for drug problems, and they never kind of like trusted him with that main event spot after that.
Oh,
when
he came back and he started his King of the Ring, when he won King of the Ring.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and that was probably the closest he ever got. But I mean, this was a guy that he was a hell of an in-ring talent. I mean, he was doing stuff in the ring and making people look good in the ring when wrestling wasn't actually about that. And then the promos that he would cut is still some of the best heel work I've ever seen. He's just an all-around amazing talent, and I just wish he had gotten. He's a guy that we're definitely going to have to do in that Wrecked with Wrestlers series, because some of the matches he did, and I still think back to his when he was the general manager of Raw or SmackDown or whatever it was, he was general manager of one of him, and the backstage segments between him and Chris Jericho is still some of the best stuff I've ever seen.
Yeah, it was Raw.
It rivaled the stuff they were doing with Mick Foley and Edge and Christian.
Yeah, there's also that, and I know one of the ones is definitely the T spot.
Oh yeah, that's probably the one that sticks out the most. But there was a lot of shenanigans those guys were doing. Shenanigans.
Good word.
Gets used a lot over in my department. Let's put it that way.
Oh, does it? Okay.
Yeah.
So big fan of William Regal. I wish that things had worked out differently for him, but it is what it is. So.
Well, and you don't have to be you don't have to be the top of the mountain to have a fan following. I mean, we've proven that time and time again that we always want our favorites to win the big belt and carry the promotion, but in all reality, they don't have to for us to still enjoy them.
No.
Yeah.
It's just sad when they don't.
Right. When they deserve it and they don't.
Yeah. I guess that's a good way to phrase it. I mean, but I'm always sad when my favorite doesn't get it, whether they deserve it or not. So.
Yeah, good point. Because you always want your favorite to win.
Exactly.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. So.
I felt that way until Bret Hart won the Intercontinental Championship and then lost it, and then when he won the World Title, I wasn't happy that he won it because I knew he was going to lose it eventually. It was weird.
Well, they're always going to lose it eventually.
I know. I'm just saying that's how my mentality got to those. Like, I don't want to. I'm not sure that I was more worried about him losing than I was excited about him winning.
Because you knew he just didn't have that dominating character.
Right. He didn't have that personality WWE liked. Yeah.
At a time when dominating characters were what they were using.
Exactly.
Makes sense. Exactly. So, anyway, should we get on to the show?
This is the show. What are you talking about? This is what we always do.
Now that we've talked for half an hour. This is what I like. This is what I like about our show is that we come in with a game plan and it goes off the rails almost immediately, and then we talk for like a half hour, 45 minutes just about wrestling. There's no real game. It's just, oh, hey, I thought of this, or I saw this earlier, or whatever. That's probably what I like the most about this show.
Yeah, because we're real people.
And yeah,
we're professionals.
There's no professionalism here. Although this week, if you tune into the Patreon version of this show afterwards, you're not going to hear my toddler running around the background.
Well, that's a good thing, I guess.
No, that's the most entertaining part. I listened to the replay, and some of the stuff he was saying just had me in tears because I remembered what he was doing during the time.
You totally ruined the punchline I was about to say.
That's the whole reason I did it.
Because what I was going to say was that's a good thing unless that means that you actually ended up killing him last week with the whole heater thing.
No, don't be saying stuff like that.
Why?
'Cause it's my little boy. I like my little boy.
Man, you're sappy.
Sometimes.
So we're going to talk about Dominion a little bit here as well, but just because I don't think you watched much of the show. What did you think of? I told you should watch a certain match from Ring of Honor this week, and did you get a chance to watch it?
Absolutely.
And was Matt Taven not masterful in that spot?
Matt Taven with his world title win. Regardless of the fact that we thought the match went on too long, his 60-minute match against Lethal, his match the week before against Lethal, and this match, Matt Taven is in my top 5 for Wrestler of the Year this year so far.
Wow.
His performance in this match was unbelievably good. His promo before it, even though it was kind of edited choppy, I wish they wouldn't have done that, because that was just too much of a callback to like the early 2000s. But his promo, the things he was saying about the conspiracy and all that stuff, bringing that back up, I thought was masterfully done. I thought his work in the match itself was just unbelievably brilliant. The way he worked with the audience, the way he worked with the umps or the ref, the way he worked with the other people in the match. I thought he was the highlight of that 45 minutes of TV that I watched.
I cannot believe you said umps.
I've got baseball on the TV, so I was watching that.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Umps came to my.
I was like,
umps
you've
came
watched
to my.
wrestling for 30 years, and you said, or like 40
said
years, and you said umps.
I think my favorite part of that whole Matt Taven performance was when he was sitting on that guy's lap in the stands.
Yeah.
And he's just like, "Hey, we're just chilling. We're just sitting here chilling, watching the show. You guys hit each other in the face. We're just gonna watch it." I thought that was probably my favorite part of his whole performance. But he was on point that entire match, and he never lost track of what was happening and working the audience while he was putting on an unbelievably good match in the ring. And they
go ahead.
I was going to say, and they made him look like a savvy genius with the way that PCO got eliminated. With the Kingdom coming down and causing the distraction, and then PCO getting eliminated. They made it the way that Riccaboni and Cabana sold that, made it look like Taven is just this masterful genius who has wrestling talent to boot.
Folks, the match that we're talking about was the second ever defy or deny match. And the rules for this match were, it was a fatal 4-way, and if anybody were to pin Taven in it, that wrestler earned himself a championship match. If Taven won the match, whoever he eliminated last would not get a champion, could not qualify for a championship match as long as Matt Taven was or is the world champion. And so because of the rules, because of that, basically there was no count out, because it was basically like a fatal 4-way style match.
Until it got down to two people.
Until it got down to two people, exactly. And so Taven started off the match basically saying, "Screw you guys, I'm going to go sit out in the crowd," because he couldn't get counted out. And the referee was trying to get him in, and he said, "No, you can't do anything to me. I can't get counted out." Which the spot that you're talking about, Jeff, didn't really make that spot make a whole hell of a lot of sense, because you can't get counted out, but you can't get disqualified. What the fuck sense does that make?
I had issues with that too, but it did kind of, I don't know, it kind of fit with it. It's a way to keep weapons and keep it from turning into a Chris Jericho street fight. So it was kind of a weird little stipulation that there could have been a disqualification, but you can't get counted out. But at the same time, it made some sense. I didn't
get the sense in it, but I mean it certainly worked to Taven's favor to do that. It just seemed like a really odd loophole to me,
Oh, I'm not lying. It caught me off guard too, because I had to sit there and think about it, going, wait, what? Oh, okay. They can get disqualified for hitting each other with foreign weapons, but they can't get counted out if they get thrown outside the ring.
Right. And
I think that's where. But you're right. It at the time it didn't make any sense. I actually had to sit and think about it.
Yeah, I mean, and what you're saying does make sense, but they didn't really quantify that to start with.
No,
I mean, they didn't say you can be counted out, but you can't be disqualified, or you can be disqualified, but you can't be counted out this early, until there's a couple of guys left. And if they'd explained it the way you explained it, I think it would have worked out better than it just happening, and you're like, what the fuck?
It was almost like a Vince Russo thrown together match where we're just going to have something on a pole and then throw the rest of it together and explain it later.
I guess that's true, but I'll give Bully Ray more benefit of the doubt than that.
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, it is kind of a cool concept. I'm a little surprised at who they pulled the trigger on to have Taven pin, though.
I'm glad, because he's already earned two world championship matches and failed in both of them. So.
Right, but it seemed like he's one of the guys that they're pushing to be a top guy, and to pull that out of him when it looks like Taven's on the road to a lengthy title reign. It kind of surprised me that they made that the last guy to get pinned.
Do you think he's on the way to a lengthy title reign? Really?
Feels like it. It really does,
Well,
because he's getting.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
He seems to be getting more in control of the matches every single match, to the point where he's outsmarting his competitors and out wrestling them.
The reason that I asked is because his next challenger is actually Jeff Cobb.
Yeah, I saw that, which kind of scares me.
And Jeff Cobb is undefeated. I mean, yes, he lost the Intercontinental Championship, but that was in a fatal four-way. He wasn't the one that got pinned. Or, I mean, I guess I called it four-quarter survival in that organization, but either way. And so that's why I'm just kind of wondering, I mean, are they going to short-circuit Taven's reign to put the title on Jeff Cobb? Or are they going to have him get screwed out of it by Taven, and then he has a chase for it, and maybe he gets it at like Final Battle or something?
I could see that happening more so but then again too, I mean, it's hard to say with what they're doing here, because they missed the opportunity with Marty Scurll. They missed the chance to capitalize on the top face in their organization by giving him the title last year. And then, we thought they missed the boat with Taven too, until he won it at the G1. And he's taken that ball and just run with it. Everything he's done has been impressive ever since he won the belt. In fact, before he won the belt.
For the record, I still feel like they missed the boat with Taven by making him wait to Madison Square Garden to win the championship.
Oh, I agree. I think they should have pulled the trigger in that 60-minute match that they did. I think that's when they should have pulled the trigger on him. But, they did course correct a month later. I still would have rather seen Taven against Scurll in that match, because you had your top face against your top villain. I think that would have made a much better match. But in all reality, I mean, they gave Taven the ball and he's run with it. So I can't complain about the fact that they finally did give it to him, and he's not skipping a beat. He's not floundering at the top. He's showing that he can be a guy that can run the promotion, that can be a top draw in the promotion. He's such a good heel, and he plays out, and he's great in the ring. He's a good heel. He's great on the mic, and he's now showing this smarter side of him. I think that he has got all 5 tools that I haven't seen since maybe when Adam Cole with Bullet Club and had the title. Not in Ring of Honor anyway. I mean, obviously other promotions we've seen better, but I think Taven is putting everything together right now.
Yeah, I think he's great, and I think he's showing it for sure. I'm just not sure how well I'm not sure if the promotion is ready. I don't know. I hope so. I mean, I hope they're going to get the title on him. I'm just not sure, because they've really been pushing the hell out of Cobb since he got there about a year ago or so.
Right. Yeah, that is true. So I guess we'll have to wait and see. I really hope that they don't pull the belt off him at this point. I think there's more money in Taven at the top with Cobb chasing him than there is with Cobb winning the belt this early.
Well, there's more story there for sure. I don't know about the money. I don't care about the money. I'm not a economist.
You're not on the booking committee either. Plus, Taven's one of my favorites this year, so I kind of want to see him at the top of the kingdom.
Right, and
see what I did there.
What was I going to say? Oh, the tradition in Ring of Honor really has been for there to be long championship reigns. So
right.
Even when it's a shitty one like what Jay Lethal was doing both times he was champion.
Exactly. Well, I'll give you the second time. I
almost got you to agree with me there.
You came very close, but I still enjoyed some of his first run.
I know you did.
His second run was just an embarrassment. Just an embarrassment.
Yeah, I don't know what was more embarrassing, the actual run or the fact that they were trying to play it off that it was a great run.
The fact that they were trying to play him off as the greatest Ring of Honor champion of all time. I just don't know how you can say that when you had Samoa Joe carry the belt the way that Samoa Joe carried it.
And Daniel Bryan.
And Nigel. And Nigel and Austin Aries and Tyler Black and, with so many greats before him. I just don't know. And I love Jay Lethal. I loved him when he was in TNA, in Impact, or TNA. I loved him when, he was the TV title and his, House of Truth gimmick that he was doing. Some of the promos he cut, where he refused to talk to his opponents or the fans. He was going to talk to the belt in that first run. I thought, his first run as a heavyweight belt title holder, I thought all that stuff was just brilliant. But this last run really hit a wall because I don't think he was ready for it, not with the story they were trying to tell. They rushed him into it because of Dalton Castle's injury, and he just floundered with it. He had nowhere to go because they rushed the story that he'd been working on for 6 to 8 months. They rushed it to get him the belt back, and he never got to finish telling the story that he was telling. And it just got lost. It just became a vanilla, boring championship reign where we got treated to the worst 30-minute Iron Man match in history. I don't know. I don't want to bitch about it because I do respect a lot that he's done, and he was. There were times in his career where I thought he was one of the best in the world. But I can't disagree that this last run was really, really bad. And what really turned me was that 60-minute match when Taven didn't get the belt.
Yeah.
When that match went on 35 minutes too long, and they just made it so frustrating that Taven didn't win it that it was just that's when I lost all faith in Jay Lethal.
Yeah, and and it's stuff like that is kind of got you and I kind of I don't know if we want to say down, but certainly less interested in Ring of Honor than we were when we started this podcast.
They still have some great things going on there. Like I said, Taven could be one of the most interesting heels on TV right now, and Kelly Klein is still just amazing in the ring. And they do have the Briscoes still, but the Briscoes have kind of become more street fighters than they have actual wrestlers, which is disheartening. I don't know. I know losing the Elite hurt them. I just didn't realize it was going to hurt them this much because they brought in such great talent in Haskins and Roosh and people like that, that it's hard for me to understand why I'm watching their product and just kind of ugh.
Yeah. What I was going to say is that you and I are kind of looking more towards organizations that we think are booked better. So next week we're planning on covering some Impact and some MLW probably.
Well, I definitely have to cover it after the announcement today of the Loser Leaves Town match between Callahan and Mance Warner.
Yeah, that's interesting. And that's tonight, you said, right?
Yep, that's the one that's premiering right now, actually. So after we're done with the show, I might watch that, or I'm going to watch some Eddie Guerrero matches. Haven't decided yet.
That's pretty awesome. There's actually wrestling on Monday nights again.
Yeah, exactly. Who was it that tweeted that? Was that NJPW?
Hey, it was NJPW, yeah, because they were showing they were like doing a free classic match every Monday or something like that.
I laughed uncontrollably when I saw that. Just because that was such a great dig.
Are you still watching regularly on Defiant, by the way?
I haven't been, but I saw there was a Pac match.
Yeah, so I saw that too. So I think I'm gonna watch that and at least give that one a shot.
I also saw that they're pushing David Starr pretty good too, which I love David Starr. I like him a lot. I might start trying to get back into that just to see what they did with Pac and David Starr and everything.
I think I'm only
like.
Wait, You love him and you like him a lot?
Yes.
Okay. Just making sure.
His entrance and all of his nicknames, it cracks me up every time I hear it.
Yeah, certainly is funny.
So he's a guy that I think really, really could handle being pushed, and I really want to find his match against Phantasmo. I just can't find it anywhere. That was Rev Pro, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
I might have to get that app again just for that match. I just hope the volume is fixed on it.
Well, if you get it again, let me know so we can both watch it and talk about it.
Okay, yeah, because that's definitely a match. And Rev Pro, I like what they do there. They do such a good job with their talent, and you get to see a whole different side of ZSJ, which is fascinating. With him showing his promo skills and everything, I really do like Rev Pro a lot. I was so disappointed with the app that it was hard to keep it.
You know, the other amazing thing that you get to see a different side of ZSJ is he's so skinny that you can pretty much see all the sides at once anyway.
You're just on a roll tonight, aren't you?
I really am.
with Dominion, do you want to start with what we talked about last week? We spent a good 45 minutes on last week. Now that you've actually seen it,
what the fuck were they thinking?
I don't get it.
For those of you who didn't see the spot, and you know, shame on you if you didn't watch Dominion and you're listening to the show. I don't want to shame you guys, but I mean seriously, the Dominion was like like over a week ago now, and you should have watched it. It's NJPW's second biggest show of the year, and that's what we cover on this show. But what happened was, and that Jeff didn't want to spoil it for me last week, and I do appreciate that, my friend. Which
was really tough to do, by the way, because I thought, and now that after you've seen it, you understand why I was pushing you to just watch that one match, because it was something that I felt needed to be talked about immediately.
I do understand. I just didn't want something one of the announcers said to spoil something else from earlier in the show or something. That was
right. And that makes sense, and I didn't think about that because they did talk about a few things that happened earlier on during that match. So,
right. But
that does make sense. But now that you've seen it, you understand why I was so fired up about it last week.
Right, and I think it's even worse than what we were talking about, and I'll say why in a moment. But it was Kota Ibushi and Tetsuya Naito were fighting on the apron. In the Intercontinental Championship match, and they were fighting back, and they were struggling back and forth to get a move on each other on the apron, and Naito did a German suplex from the apron, and they botched it to the point where Ibushi twisted his neck like it looked like it broke, very similar to like Jeff said last week to what happened with Will Ospreay and Marty Scurll at Dontaku last year. And here's my whole thing with it, Jeff. There was no possible good outcome of doing that move at all. Anyway.
No, there never is when they're on the apron anymore, and that's why it's a move that needs to be taken away.
But my point is, it was a German suplex. So I mean, even if he doesn't hit the apron, they're flying blind off of there backwards, both of them.
Right.
About to hit their head in the neck on the concrete. I mean, what the fuck?
And this was a guy who...
That's just an unnecessarily dangerous move.
And the thing with Kota, too, is he is just getting over that concussion he got from the Ospreay match at Wrestle Kingdom. And the amount of times that I saw him land on his head after that hit, literally, I was standing up screaming at my TV just to lay down, stay down. Because it was starting to get to a point where it was brutal.
Yeah. Totally.
There was no point at all for that move. I don't think there's point at all for any head bumps on the apron like that. And they do them a lot. It seems like at least 2 to 3 times a show, that move has to be done. And it doesn't matter what show it is. MLW does it. Impact does it. NJPW, Ring of Honor, pretty much everybody we watch has these apron head bumps now, but there's no point to them because we've seen it now twice in less than a year where we thought Will Ospreay was dead last year, and I seriously was afraid for Kota's life after seeing that bump this year.
Well,
It's unnecessary.
And another one was at All In last year when Kenny Omega
Joey Janela.
No, I was going to say when Kenny Omega took the package pile driver on the apron.
Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah. Yeah, it just makes no sense to me.
No, it doesn't. And and another thing on this particular show, and I believe also in the best of the Super Juniors final, Shingo. Now let me ask you something, Jeff. You and I, when we were first talking about Shingo in the singles matches, we were marveling at his pop-up Luis Piccoli driver, right?
Yep, loved it.
And look at how amazing it is.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what looks better, that or the one he's been doing on the apron?
I like the one that he did in the ring better, but that could be because I hate the apron spots so much.
But I even think if you're just looking at it, what's more impactful looking, it's the one in the ring. It's the pop-up one.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely.
So I mean, I think it's really. I mean, you're trying to sell something to the audience. You're trying to give a great visual, and the pop-up one in the middle of the ring is the one that gives the better visual. It's the one that the fan can relate to more, because honestly, you and I and presumably most of the people listening to this broadcast are seasoned wrestling fans. So we've been hearing for years about how dangerous the apron is, right?
Right.
But there's also people out there that have not been doing that, and so they're not going to know that. They're not going to have the announcers tell them all the time how dangerous the apron is, and they're not going to know it's the hardest part of the ring, and that's going to do the most damage. So what's going to look better to the average fan? The pop-up one, where it looks like it's more impactful and in the middle of the ring. I just do not understand the psychology of going over and over again to those apron spots.
I don't get it either.
Especially when it relies on the announcers to tell you that. So I mean, say that you were, and I don't know that these people are out there, but I'm sure there's at least a few of them. You're an NJPW fan who you only watch the Japanese commentary because you love the Japanese commentary so much. You don't watch any other organization. Is it going to make sense to you as a fan that they keep using the apron over and over again? It's just dumb. It really is dumb.
And it really was when Kevin Owens did it to Sami Zayn was the first time I ever saw the apron come into play like that. And then that put Sami on the shelf for months. And then he did it to Cena. He did it to Jericho, and that took those guys out for months. And now they're doing them as transitional spots in the middle of matches. It just makes no sense to me.
The last couple of days, I don't know if you've seen this on Twitter yet, Jeff. I'm sure you have, but we've had a couple of our fans kind of begging us to bring back the ECW reviews I used to do.
Yeah, I saw that.
And one thing that ECW was so good at is that they would go like with say it was like Al Snow against Rob Van Dam, or Jerry Lynn against. Or I would say like Sabu against Jerry Lynn, something like that, or Taz against Bam Bam. They would go out there and they would tease those spots on the apron, or they were going to throw each other off the apron onto the floor. And occasionally it would happen, but I mean they wouldn't do this stuff over and over and over again. They would set it up with real psychology, and you would even have it set up so that they might start the psychology out there. And then they go for another 10 minutes in the ring, come back out and hit something but it would always be on a table or something else it would sound silly, but it would at least cushion the fall some, rather than actually going through that apron or going right onto the concrete.
Right.
And now you're seeing, and I'll credit a match that you and I both loved from last year with accelerating this as well, Johnny Gargano versus Tommaso Ciampa from TakeOver New Orleans.
Yep.
Just flying willy-nilly off that apron, or not off the apron, but off the table, off the apron, onto the concrete floor, and this is the thing that about pro wrestling that is so dangerous to me, is that people always feel a need to one up each other.
Mm-hmm.
You talked about that with the finisher kickouts and things like that. But what I'm talking about is, that's why the DDT doesn't mean as much anymore. It's why, the apron spots. Well, I think we talked about this a little bit last week too. Is that eventually these apron spots are not going to mean anything because we're going to see them over and over again in every match, and we're already starting to see that. It's why the tope it's why the topes don't matter in WWE anymore because everybody does them in every match.
Right.
The more you do these things over and over, the less that they mean. And even if you're doing them once a show or once every other show, it's too much. It starts to lose their meaning. And
With the amount...
And here, there's really no point to it whatsoever. I mean, yeah, these guys are rivals. Yeah, they want to beat each other. But there's not any real hatred there. It's not a blood feud. It's not something that's been going on for months where they hate each other. They're just trying to prove who the better wrestler is.
Right.
And for them to put themselves in that kind of danger for that reason doesn't make any sense. If you're gonna do this, first of all, you shouldn't do it at all. But secondly, if you're gonna do it, there should be a real reason and real stakes involved, not just Intercontinental Championship. It should be for a real blood feud reason.
And one of those blood feud reasons that it would have worked with, but it was also, I thought was stupid because we thought he was dead, was Will Ospreay versus Skrull. I mean, that's as close to a blood feud as you're going to get right now, with the way that Skrull beats Ospreay, and that's just known. So for Will Ospreay to take that kind of risk would have made sense in his match against Skrull, but it made no sense for any of those apron spots to be in this match.
No, it did not. And so that turned me off quite a bit, seeing that. And as soon as I saw them go on the apron and start fighting, I was like, this has got to be the spot Jeff was talking about. But also, the result of the match really turned me off too. I'm pretty opposed to the continual. Well, it seems to me like they're pushing the reset button every so often in NJPW lately. And I know that you said the other day that they may not have a choice with everybody that left, but do they really have to keep putting the Intercontinental Championship on Naito every other month?
And never actually push him to the top where he should be.
Right.
I agree with that. I mean, I think I would much rather see somebody like Sonata have it, or even Shingo, for that matter, have it, than seeing it on Naito constantly, and then he'll lose it. He'll probably lose it at the next big show to somebody else, Will Ospreay or something. Who knows? But it just...
Well, that's the thing. I mean, you and I talked about last week, or maybe it was the week before. You asked me who I thought was going to win G1, and I said I thought it was probably going to be Naito, and you were pretty surprised by that position. But now that he's got an Intercontinental Championship back, I mean, it would make no sense for him to win the G1 because then we either know that he's going to lose the championship, or that the Intercontinental title is not going to be defended at Wrestle Kingdom. So
right.
So really,
he'll end up losing the Intercontinental title on the way there. But then again, we've also seen him wrestle against Okada at Wrestle Kingdom before, and it was a disaster for Naito. It's just, I like Naito's character. I like the fact that he plays a tweener so well, because it's the majority of LIJ is cheered. Evil and Sonata are cheered. Shingo is cheered. Bushi, unfortunately, is booed, but and Naito has his mix where some places he's cheered, some places he's booed, and he played his heel to a T in this match. Even the way he celebrated over Ibushi at the end of the match, I thought was him playing the heel to a T. And remember when I said that they kind of went back and forth, where 1 minute the fans would love him, the next minute the fans hated him?
Yeah.
Did you pick up on that during this match?
I did.
It just, well, and I guess it did help that Don Callis kept calling it out too, but it just, Naito is one of those pillars that needs to actually become a pillar at some point. And I just, like you said, I'm losing faith that they're ever going to pull the trigger on him.
Yeah, and that's a sad position to be in, really.
And it's the same. It's unfortunately the same position I'm starting to get to with Sonata, and I really hope I don't get there with Jay White.
Yeah, that's an excellent point actually. What else was I? Oh, the other thing was that the other thing with Naito winning the championship back here is they made it a big production about how Ibushi wanted to make the Intercontinental Championship as big as the World Championship.
Right.
But obviously he can't do that. He was not the champion anymore. So it's really I don't know why they say these kind of things and then don't have the guys actually have a chance to follow up on them. Because they did the same thing with Kenny Omega in the U.S. title. They said he said he wanted to make that as big as the World Championship. Next thing we know, he's staring at the lights and Jay White's the new champion.
Yep. And speaking of championships that are starting to mean nothing, we had another title change happen earlier on in the night that I hope is now being held. Now it's being held by a legitimate tough guy. Can we keep it on him for a little while?
No.
This is the never open weight championship changed hands again. It's just how much more can they devalue this championship?
Well, they keep putting it on Taichi. So I mean that's your answer right there.
Well, not just Taichi, but it's the whole cast of people that have lost it in their first defense.
I know, but I just Taichi.
Oh, I know, I know, and he's a guy that I'm actually starting to like more the more I see him, simply because it almost feels like he's starting to put everything together. So I have liked his matches a little bit more here and there, but at the same time, enough. This title was one of the most prestigious in the world when Shibata held it in 2014, and now it literally means nothing.
That's true, but
and the fact that you even had Kevin Kelly trashing it in the beginning of the match when he was talking about now comes the champion that you don't want to buy merchandise for, you want to rent it. You even got the announcers now trashing it.
That's a great line.
Oh, it is. It's a great line, but it never should have gotten to that point with a championship that was this prestigious.
No, it shouldn't have. But let me ask you something. Do you really think that it should stay the Tough Man Championship? Because that's not what it was originally meant for. And it looked like that Kota Ibushi and Will Ospreay were going to bring it back to what it was originally supposed to be, which was the Young Guys Championship.
Right.
And then all of a sudden it's back on Taichi, who's like 35, and now it's back on Ishii, who's 41 or something. So
yeah.
It's just I wish they would make up their mind about what they want that title to be. If they want it to be the Tough Man Championship, great. If they want it to be the Young Man's Championship, fine. But make up your mind and decide what you want to do with it, and actually have it be have somebody be a dominant champion with that title for a while.
And I think once they pulled it off, once the feud between Ishii and Shibata and the belt went to Suzuki, it still had some credibility, but then it started playing hot potato with it going to Goto and then back to Suzuki and then to Goto, and then Goto loses it to Taichi, and then it's just been all over the map ever since then. And everybody loses it in their first defense. It just over the last 2 to 3 years, it just has lost so much prestige that I don't even care to see it defended anymore.
No, at this point, I would like them to either get rid of it or unify it with the United States title, because there's just too many championships as it is anyway.
Well, yeah, and the U.S. title didn't get defended on this show.
No, but it was just one. It was just one like a few days before.
2 days ago, yeah.
Yeah, so it's totally understandable.
So, but speaking of the U.S. champ, Jon Moxley. Last time we talked, I was very disappointed in the way the match went. I cannot say that about this match. This match is what I want to see out of Jon Moxley. I want to see him be the brawler but sell like a son of a bitch like he did. He made this Shota Umino look amazing.
Yeah,
He made it.
and I hope that was a launching of Shota onto Excursion, because I mean, this guy's ready to go for a while.
Yeah, and this match was exactly what I wanted out of Moxley. And I liked the fact that even though he's this renegade heel, the fact that he helped Shota to the back was just an amazing show of sportsmanship that I thought was perfectly executed.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. I gotta give that one to you. Yeah, I mean, I'm a fan. I'm a fan of pretty much anything Moxley does. I really did enjoy. I enjoyed the match that you didn't enjoy, but yeah, I mean, it was great, and I'm glad that Shota got a bit of a chance to shine a little bit too.
Yeah, he looked good, and Moxley is one of the best sellers in the business right now. He bumps all over the place for people, and he makes people look good, a lot like Dolph Ziggler used to do in the WWF, and a lot like Daniel Bryan used to do. They make whoever they're in the ring with look great, and John Moxley did that with Shota.
Don't forget like you should have said like Shawn Michaels did for Hulk Hogan at SummerSlam.
Didn't they even? Somebody brought that up. I think one of the podcasts I was listening to brought that up about how Shawn Michaels selling against Hulk Hogan was one of the best they'd ever seen, and obviously tongue in cheek, but it just, I can't remember who I was listening to that literally just brought that up.
I don't know. Let's see about great minds though.
Oh yeah, okay. That great mind probably said in 1995, or in 2015.
What's that?
The podcast I was listening to, I think it was from 2015.
Oh, well, fine, be that way.
Haha.
Another thing I wasn't a big fan of it on this show, and now I'm a little bit even more confused by it than I was since you wrote down the blocks for me. But was Will Ospreay winning the Junior Heavyweight Championship back from Dragon Lee? I think you and I both wanted Lee to hold it until he lost it back to
Takahashi.
Yeah, it was Hiromu. I was trying to think of his first name. Yeah, Hiromu. But it's just so weird that he would come out and say that he wants to really establish the junior heavyweight division and that kind of thing, and now he's wrestling where I wanted him to be in the first place, in the G1. It seems really odd to me that he's in the G1 if he's trying to establish the junior division as being one of the best in the world. Am I missing something here? I'm confused by it as well. Almost as confused as I was when Shingo announced that he was going to the G1. Right, because I would have thought if one of those two guys was going to go, it would have been Ospreay. And
right.
Now we find out both of them were in there, but Ospreay didn't really announce for it like Shingo did. It's really odd. Maybe Ospreay didn't have to because he was already almost fledglingly in that division or something.
Or maybe he is a fill-in. Maybe somebody was supposed to be in there and got hurt, so they threw him in there.
Or signed with MLW exclusively.
That's a possibility too.
I mean, the other KES guy is in there,
Well, and that was the other big person that I was going to say was missing from it, because you had Suzuki and you had Davey Boy that had been in that for years, and they're not in it this year.
Well, Davey Boy's been off and on in it.
And another guy that was in it last year was Tama Tonga. He's not in it this year.
Oh, darn. I missed that fucker. So there's only two Bullet Club guys in it then, huh? It's just Jay White and Paulie?
Yeah, and I think this is the Jay White launching pad. I think I can see him winning this, and I said it last week. I think Jay White is perfectly set up to win this for a showdown against Okada and to finally end their feud at Wrestle Kingdom.
Huh. I really think you're wrong.
Oh, I probably am. I probably am, but it seems to fit. But maybe it's because I want Jay White to, to run after the championship, kind of like he tried to do last year. And when he tried to take the briefcase from Tanahashi and everything.
Right, and I mean, and this is the kind of thing that what I talked about earlier about how we wanted to watch organizations that we think are booked really well, like Impact and MLW. This is NJPW still has excellent in-ring stuff, but their booking
is confusing.
It's confusing, and also it feels regressive. There was a time when I felt that way about TNA when they would get their TV deals and they would change things, they would reset everything, and they would always go back to AJ was back to being in the X division after being world champion, and then he was back to being a clown, or then Jeff Jarrett was always back to being the champion, and now I feel that's what they're doing with NJPW right now, where because because Kenny Omega left and basically just Kenny Omega left. Now they put the belt on Tanahashi for one defense, and they put the belt on Jay White for one defense, and now it's back on Okada. And don't get me wrong, I like Okada, but he also held the championship for almost 2 straight years, and then he didn't hold it for about 8 or 9 months. So now, after barely having a break from him, after kind of ruining his character while he wasn't champion, now we have him as the champion again, and I'm just not excited about it.
And I hate to say this, but he's become the Cena of NJPW, the guy that they know is going to draw at the top, and when they have no other option, they throw the belt on him. They were building Kenny Omega. They were building him to carry that belt, and he left, and they had to get some prestige back to it. I don't like the way they did it, but it makes sense because, Kenny had to drop the belt, so he dropped it to Tanahashi, who had the briefcase. And then they got to get the belt back over to Okada. Well, they're not going to have a Tanahashi versus Okada match, so again, for the 750th time, to start to run, like a Cena Orton type feud, they put it on Jay White, who really did deserve it at the time, who should have held it longer, but then it goes right back to Okada because Okada is the one who makes money at the top. And like you said, we as fans, we don't care so much about the money, but as a promoter, that's what they have to care about. So he, in a sense, he's become the Cena of NJPW.
But how do they know that Jay White wasn't going to make money in his first reign if they didn't give him a chance to show that he could?
Exactly, they don't. It's panic mode. They lost the guy who they built up to be their top star, and they panicked. And they got it back on Okada as quickly as they could.
Yeah, and the other thing is, did they really lose that guy, or did they just decide they didn't want to work with him anymore because he went to another promotion? Because Kenny was still perfectly willing to work with them. They just weren't willing to work with AEW.
Which doesn't make sense considering that they have a champion now who's a full-time member of AEW. They just had a full-time member of AEW challenge for the heavyweight belt. It doesn't make sense that they were so unwilling to work with Kenny.
I think that Kenny still has a part of his contract that he can work in New Japan, or in Japan in general at least. I think it just may be a timing issue, or and also it's weird that his maybe friend, maybe lover, it's none of our business, Kota Ibushi, decided to stay there and not go with AEW when he had been so adamant about not making a commitment to an organization for years.
Right, and then all of a sudden he signs an exclusive 2-year deal to NJPW.
Right.
It's just there's a lot of weirdness with this.
That's why he's one of my 2, along with Naito, that I think is going to win the G1 this year.
Because of his signing. Well, I thought I would have seen him winning the New Japan Cup before the G1.
But he didn't.
Right. Yeah, that is true. He didn't. But
I don't disagree with you. I'm just saying he didn't. So now G1 is what's up next.
But it kind of makes it kind of makes sense why they did what they did when you look at the fact that they wanted to reset and get it back on Okada. But I do get it. I mean, I get where you're coming from, and I get what you're saying is that the booking has become confusing. The never open weight title, which was one of my favorites for years, is now meaningless. You've got belt swapping all across the board, with the exception of the tag team belts that just cannot seem to get off GOD. And it's really become confusing booking. The in-ring performances are still top-notch, but the booking and the storytelling has gotten so confusing.
And it's really hard to keep watching an organization, regularly when you don't agree with the booking decisions that they're making.
Right.
Maybe I can maybe I can intellectually understand them, with what you're saying, but that doesn't mean I can really get on even with what they're doing.
All I know is if Matt Taven continues to perform like he did at that, what was it? What was the name of that?
State of the Art.
If he continues to perform like he did there, I will be right back in watching Ring of Honor wrestling.
Well, we have him against Jeff Cobb for the championship at Best in the World on June 28th.
Yep, and I'll definitely be watching that. And then we're going to do our mid-year awards on that show too, aren't we?
That's the plan, yeah.
Okay. Sit down.
I don't know if I'll have a chance to watch Fyter Fest or not that weekend, but that definitely is. That's on the same weekend as well. So.
Yeah, and I really want to see a lot of the matches on that.
Yeah, I mean, and I'll definitely watch it. I'm just not sure I'll get a chance to watch it
live.
Live or before we have our show, just because, with my wife's new schedule, she's off on weekends, and I'd rather spend time with her than, watching wrestling. I got to be honest about that. So.
Well, that makes sense. I mean, it's a love, but I'm not gonna sacrifice time with my kid for it.
Yeah, exactly.
That's just unfortunately the bottom line. I watch it whenever I can. I watch it when he goes to bed. I usually, I was telling you that I usually fall asleep at night to old AWA and the old WCCW and NWA, the stuff from the early 80s. That's what I fall asleep to at night. Either that or Doctor Who. It depends on my mood.
Well, yeah, Doctor Who would put anybody to sleep, so it makes total sense to me.
It does when you've seen them all hundreds of times,
or just have disdain for it.
Sadness.
I think it's interesting that you don't want to sacrifice time with your kid, but you're willing to sacrifice your kid to the heater.
I did not sacrifice my kid to the heater. He did what all children do. He got curious.
Yeah. He also did the thing where you said, it's hot, don't touch it. So he touched it to make sure it was really hot.
I shouldn't have said don't touch it. Kids always do the opposite.
Yeah. You should have said something like, why don't you come over here and play with this? That way his mind wouldn't even have been on it.
That's what I should have done, yes. I should have gotten him back into playing with the puzzle that we were doing before that.
Yeah.
See, now I feel like a horrible parent.
No. It's not your fault. I just keep messing with you.
If you listen to the replay, you get to hear me making him feel better.
Oh, feel better, okay.
Yeah. Go to patreon.com to hear all the shenanigans that happened off mic last week. Jesus.
And stay tuned to the regular show to just hear Shane be a dick all the time. So.
Pretty much, yeah. Yeah, you can hear that on the replay too, though.
Oh, can you?
Oh yeah,
I thought you edited that part out of the replay, but then I guess it would just be you talking if that were the case. Yeah.
And nobody wants to listen to 2 hours of me.
Well, nobody wants to listen to 2 hours of both of us, but they do anyway. So.
That's a good point. That's a very good point.
What else on the show is worth? Oh, the other thing that really ticked me off on this show was fucking Yoshihashi getting a pin on
CSJ
Jr. That's fucking ridiculous.
I really enjoyed the part where Jushin Liger came in and kicked Yoshihashi.
Yeah.
I thought that was an interesting turn of events. I also liked Don Callis' commentary on it, where he was talking about how Yoshihashi needs to go on excursion to Siberia.
What was the reasoning for that? I must have missed that.
It was just him bad-mouthing Yoshihashi, basically saying what we've all said. He's just stale.
Okay.
And he needs to go on excursion, and in true Don Callis form, he said to go to Siberia, because they've got a great program there, is what he said. They've got a great territory there. That's what he'd said. And of course, you got more Suzuki, Don Callis stuff, which I always find that's always a good time for me.
Yeah, because Callis is scared to death of Suzuki, like all of us probably should be.
Right. Still, nothing's going to beat his in a World Tag League last year when he was talking about how he likes open discussions with his stablemates, and what he means by open discussion is Don Callis, of course, is saying this. Yes. He likes the open discussions with that he has with the people underneath him, and what he means by open discussions is murder.
Yeah. That
was still probably my favorite all-time Don Callis line.
That was an amazing line. It really was. And that's the other thing about us watching Impact is we're going to get to hear Don Callis every single episode of that show.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah, and that's something that I'm trying to work back into my schedule. I know there's a couple of big shows you want to talk about next week, so just shoot me a text on what those are so I can watch them.
Well, I'm also going to talk about them, say what they are going to be on the show, because that way our fans can follow along with us.
That's a good point. You can do that.
Can I? Thanks.
If you feel you must.
Yes. Yes, I do. Were Yo and Show even on this card? They weren't,
Nope.
Were they?
No, they weren't.
That's odd.
So we didn't have the junior tag belts defended.
Or the champions even on the show, which is just nuts.
Instead, what we got was, actually, to be honest, I really loved Chase Owens' performance in that six-man match. I thought he was incredible in that. The way that he drugged Jay White back to the corner and slapped his leg to get the tag in, I thought his performance was amazing during that.
Did you say he drugged him into the corner?
Drug him, yeah.
Okay, I thought you said you drugged him into the corner.
It's possible I said that. I'm getting sleepy. I was up early.
Okay.
It is possible that I said that.
All right. I was like drugged him, and then you said into the corner. I was like, oh, okay, that makes more sense.
I don't know. I really liked Chase Owens' performance in this match. I thought he was on point the whole time. Tanahashi, I don't know if he's getting a rejuvenation. Maybe he's healing now, but this is two matches in less than 4 days apart where he has looked really good. And I haven't said that about Tanahashi in a year and a half.
Yeah. And that kind of scares me because I really don't want them pushing him to the top of the G1 again this year.
Oh, I don't either. I think his time has passed, and he knows that. But I'm just saying that this is, or maybe it's Jay White bringing out the best in him. I don't know, but this is 2 times in a row that I've seen, in 2 times in less than 4 days, that he's looked really, really good.
You realize there was people that just turned off the podcast when they heard you say that Jay White was making Tanahashi look good.
More than likely, it's. I guess I can see that, but come on, you've got to admit that Jay White is probably one of the best pure wrestlers right now.
Oh yeah, I'm a big fan of Jay White. I'm just saying there's people out there that are not
Tanahashi fans. There's still the Ace fans of the Ace and his guitar playing and his sling blade and his overdone stuff.
Well, not just that, but there's people out there that I talked about last week how there's people out there that call Sami Callihan a tryhard. And I just don't see that. And
I don't get that at all.
But there's people out there that also call Jay White a tryhard.
I don't know what they're seeing. I honestly don't know what they are seeing because you've got Callahan, who is still probably one of my favorite characters, and he made a serious run for Wrestler of the Year for me last year because of his character work, and now this year he's right up in that top 5 again. He's just an amazing character.
And remember, he didn't just make a serious run in your Wrestler of the Year category. He also was the Impact Wrestler of the Year as voted by the fans.
Exactly. I mean, and say what you will about his, the way he really kind of made a name for himself. He's not doing that stuff anymore. He's not swinging the baseball bat at Eddie Edwards' eye anymore. It's not. He's evolved his work to where he might be one of the strongest promos out there, and I can't wait to see. Speaking of strongest promos, we're getting closer to Austin Aries and MLW.
Do we know when that debut is? We don't, because they just keep saying coming soon.
Coming soon, yeah. I think he's finishing up in Australia right now.
Okay.
I think that's why he hasn't been on yet. Because I think he was working somewhere over in Australia for a while.
Yeah, he was working for WSW,
Okay.
World Series of Wrestling.
Okay, yeah, that's where he was. But I know he was finishing up programs over there, I'm guessing, before he comes to MLW.
Probably.
But he's somebody that I'm really looking forward to. I haven't been this excited about somebody coming back to a promotion I watch in a long time.
Yeah, and he was in the very first episode of MLW we ever saw, or they ever even broadcast, and he's not been there since, as far as I'm aware, as far as I can remember. Right?
I don't believe so. No.
He had that opening match against ECW, and so actually he was on the very first match of the very first episode of Fusion, and then he's not been there the entire rest of the time.
Right.
It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah, he was the very first match. And that was what, ACH? He had that match against ACH?
Yeah, exactly.
Where is ACH now?
He is in NXT.
Well, at least he's in NXT and not getting wasted. And a sidebar here. I heard an interview with John Cena, which, was odd. It was on the Edge and Christian show. Mm-hmm. And after hearing him talk and the way that he described working for the WWE, a lot of it makes sense now. I still don't. It's still not my preferred organization. I'm not, going there for wrestling matches. But I mean, John even said that's not what the WWE is. The WWE is something completely different, where you don't have, where people like that watch NJPW and Ring of Honor and MLW and AEW and all these independents like the NWA and things like that. We're wrestling fans, so we want to see wrestling. Where the WWE is so much bigger now than a wrestling company. They're not the company that they were back in 90, 96, 97, 98. They're now a publicly traded beast of a company that is now, they have to touch people that know nothing about wrestling to make their money. They're going after the casual fans, where the hardcore fans are now gravitating towards these other promotions. And it made sense when you watch the product, that you can tell that they're more into the casual fan than they are to the actual wrestling purists.
Okay, so I'm not going to disagree with what you just said, because it sounds perfectly correct to me. But I am going to say this: does the average fan out there just like bad comedy better than they like pro wrestling? Because I mean that's basically what what started getting me down on WWE is that they
is all the stupid all the stupid skits and no, and I get it, but I mean if you look at it through that lens, I guess it makes sense, because they're looking to entertain, and one of the ways to entertain it is by making the average fan laugh. So you might have a husband sitting watching wrestling for the wrestling, and all of a sudden a comedy skit comes on and it drags his wife into it. Now all of a sudden you got two eyes on it, and then there's some colorful New Day character that comes out. Now you got the kids on it, so now you've got everybody in the household eyes on it, buying merchandise. It's a great strategy. It's just not for true wrestling fans. And it makes sense. It really does, especially when you look at the product. It makes perfect sense.
Again, I'm not going to disagree with you. I just think that if that's what they're trying to do, they're still very, very bad at it.
Fair enough. That is a fair point.
And if they weren't, the ratings wouldn't keep dropping. I mean, I realize that they still got, huge deals from Fox and USA, but I mean, their ratings are reflecting a totally different story because they suck.
And ratings to me mean nothing at this point in technology. When everybody DVRs things, nobody watches anything live anymore. You DVR it and you watch it later, or you watch it in a month when it comes on the network, or you watch it on Hulu throughout the week. There's so many different places, kind of like we were talking about the Monday Night Wars, where you didn't have to watch Nitro live. You could watch the replay, or you could tape one of them. You've got all these different options and places to go now to watch Raw, to watch SmackDown, that you don't have to sit there and watch it live. So of course the ratings are going to drop.
Right, but they also have ratings that take all that into account as well. That are like watching it within 7 days or something like that the advertisers look at.
Well, shit, look at how far behind we are on stuff. I mean, how many people do you think they have a life? So they're 3, 4, 5 episodes behind on Raw, but they're still watching it. They're still buying the merchandise. They had said that 2018, even with all the low ratings, 2018 was the most profitable year WWE has ever had, and they're on pace to eclipse that again this year.
Interesting. I had no idea.
And their ratings keep plummeting. It's because people are not tuning in the day of, or the next day, or 2 days later. They're watching it when they have time. They're watching it, 3, 4 weeks later when it appears on the network, or they're watching it, on Hulu a month later, because it's up on Hulu for like 6, 7 weeks.
But why? But then why, if you're a television station, would you pay for that? Was my point.
That doesn't make sense to me. I guess I don't understand that. But, Fox they're a type of, they like their live sports.
Well, that's what they're trying to build. That's what they're trying to build themselves as now that they've sold all their content to Disney. Right.
And they sold all their movie content. They sold all their TV rights. Everything has gone to Disney. And they're trying to come back. I mean, they've already got football. They've got baseball. They're trying to get hockey, from what I understand. They're trying to get a deal with basketball, and they went after wrestling. And really, at the time, would you rather put WWE on your channel, or do you want to put Ring of Honor? From a corporate aspect, they're going to go after WWE, because that's when when you say wrestling to people, a lot of people go, oh, WWE, because it's become synonymous with it.
But I mean, was that their only option, to go with wrestling, go with Ring of Honor or WWE?
No, probably not. But when you look at it, and I didn't mean to throw Ring of Honor under the bus, but when you think wrestling, and you're an average fan, you think WWE. To the average fan, WWE and wrestling is the exact same thing. They don't realize that wrestling is Ring of Honor, New Japan, NWA, MLW, Rev Pro, Defiant, and all these other organizations. They think wrestling, WWE, makes sense. Oh, WWE's on. Okay, I'll watch that.
And the ironic thing about that is that WWE does not view themselves as wrestling.
Exactly. They're entertainment now.
Right.
But they've done such a phenomenal and there we go. That's number 1. they do such. Hey, I made it almost 2 hours in.
I'm not sure that one actually counts, because it's not even about a match. But go ahead.
Oh, okay. They've done such an amazing job throughout the tenure of Vince McMahon, dating back to the early '80s, of building that brand to the point where it's now synonymous with wrestling. That's what most people in the world think. When you say wrestling, most people in the world think WWE. And that you got to give all that credit to Vince. He's the one who built that. He built that brand to that point.
Does it ever make you cringe when you hear like Nigel McGuinness or Mauro Ranallo say on an NXT broadcast that So such and such a person has wanted to be a sports entertainer, entertainer their entire life.
Yeah, it does in a way. Yeah, it does. I can't say it doesn't. It just like it made me cringe when Tommaso Ciampa was calling himself the greatest sports entertainer alive.
Right.
You know, I still view these guys as wrestlers, and I still like the fact that an NXT can put on great matches. And I mean, you do get great matches here and there. You just got to sit through a lot of crap to get to that great match.
But I'm not going to do that.
Yeah, I'm not either. I barely have time to watch the stuff that we do like.
Yeah, I mean, I really do want to try to find some time to get caught up on, or at least watch some of NXT UK, especially that 6-man tag that Ryan recommended to us. But
and I've been hearing a lot of good things out of Pete Dunne again. You know, and Pete Dunne still to me is one of the best in the world. You know, I can't say enough about him, and I also want to. I mean, there are certain WWE matches that I want to see. I want to go back and watch the AJ Styles Seth Rollins match from this last pay-per-view.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, there's been some matches between Bryan and AJ that I want to see that were on SmackDown. I just, you know, and people have recommended other matches too, and I want to go back and see them because they do still put on some good wrestling matches here and there. It's just you got to get through all the horrible backstage segments and all the in-ring promos and the bad comedy and the horrible matches that are just there to bridge the gap between stupid comedy bits.
Well, you have a good time doing that because I will not.
Oh, I won't be doing it. I will wait for our listeners to tell me what a good match is, and then I'll go watch that match.
Well, I'm pretty sure that you want to. I know for sure that you're going to go back and watch Undertaker versus Goldberg. So
I've actually thought about it just to see how bad it was because I've heard it was just a botch fest. I've heard that it was one of the worst matches in history. You know, all this stuff, and I just kind of want to see from my own eyes just how bad it really is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe that's just me. I'm kind of a fan of car wreck radio, train wreck radio or whatever. Train wreck TV and all that stuff.
Yeah, I won't watch it because number 1 is WWE, number 2 was in Saudi Arabia, number 3 is those two old fuckers. So.
Well, I'll let you know. I'll let you know if it really was the worst match in history. It's got a lot of work to do to top that Jay Lethal, Jonathan Gresham Iron Man match.
Yeah, and honestly, you know, I've been watching. I told you I've been listening to some of Busted Open on Sirius Radio, and honestly, it kind of pisses me off that Tommy Dreamer said that we should be showing them showing Undertaker and Goldberg more respect than what we are, because no, we don't need to. They shouldn't be doing this at their age.
Was that Dreamer or was that? I thought that was Mark Henry.
It was Dreamer.
Was it?
Well, maybe it was Mark Henry. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Dreamer was just supporting what he said.
Because I thought it was Mark Henry that came out and said it, not on Busted Open. He came out and said it in an article somewhere.
Well, he's also one of the co-hosts on Busted Open. So
oh, is he? Okay. Maybe it was.
He's one of the rotating cast on there.
Okay, maybe it was him on Busted Open then, but I could have swore that was Mark Henry that said that we need to respect what these guys did. No, we don't need to respect what these guys did. They never should have been in the ring to begin with.
Exactly. That's my take on it.
They're both so far past their wrestling ability, and Taker has shown that in the last 2 or 3 WrestleManias.
Exactly.
You know, he just cannot perform anymore, and especially not in a main event level against another guy who honestly never really learned the business.
Right, and actually that was another point on Busted Open, is that Bully was saying that the reason that happened is because it wasn't just their age, it wasn't just, you know, the their physical status at this point. It's also because Bill Goldberg had never been upside down his entire life.
He hasn't. I mean, he's never learned the business. He was thrown into the mix, got hot quicker than anybody ever has, and became their champion to the point where, you know, he was still green, because he is only a 3 or 4 year vet by the time WCW closed down. You know, and then he took 2 years off, or a year off or something like that, came back, wrestled a little bit for a very little while in WWE, and then he was done until he showed up in that match against Kevin Owens for his big showdown with Brock Lesnar.
Well, he faced Lesnar first, didn't he?
Oh, that's right. Yeah, he did. And it was like a 70-second squash match or something like that. And then he had a 35-second squash match against Owens. So this is a guy who really only had 4 or 5 years of experience to start with and then took many, many years off.
Right.
So it's not like he was Sting or Ric Flair or anybody else that has been on the road for 19, 20 years and is still wrestling at a high level into their 50s. This is a 50-year-old guy who literally is still wet behind the ears when it comes to wrestling.
Right. He did not know how to take that. He did not know how to take that bump because he'd never had to do it before.
Exactly. And then you've got
and really they should have known better than to do it, honestly. So no, I don't think we owe them our respect.
No, I don't either. I don't either. I'm right there with you. So.
Anything else we want to cover this week?
No, I think we covered the gamut this week.
I think we did too. Oh, you know what? We did not talk about Jericho Okada at all.
Oh yeah, how could we forget that?
It was a match that happened. That's the best I would say.
Yeah, I like Jericho. I like the performance he gave against Okada, or not Okada. I mean Omega, at the Double or Nothing pay-per-view. Mm-hmm. I'm not a fan of his street fighting in NJPW. I understand why he's doing it. He's a 30-year veteran. He's 48 years old. I get it. I'm not a fan of every match turning into a street fight. That being said, there was a lot of match in the ring, and I thought they did very, very good. I like the fact that Jericho went on the offensive after the match ended, and he really beat down Okada, but where's it going to go?
Well,
where's that?
It sure seemed like they were setting up for Tanahashi versus Jericho at Wrestle Kingdom to me, personally. But
it's kind of the way it felt, too. But then where does Okada get his revenge? He's got to get his revenge on Jericho, too.
That's a good question. I have no idea.
He took a beating from Jericho after that match. I mean, Jericho made the top draw in the business look like a chump because he beat him down. So when does Okada get his do good?
Yeah. And do we really want to see it again? That's the thing. I mean, yeah, it was a good match, but do we really want to see it again? I don't personally.
I don't know if it was I guess I could say good. I could say it was a match that you could see because Jericho did, considering his age and considering how many miles he has on him, he did look really good in this match when he was actually performing a wrestling match. And I did really like the way that Callis told us the difference between the Walls of Jericho and the Lion Tamer. Mm-hmm. I thought that because it's such a subtle difference that a lot of people never realized it, never really figured out. They just always thought it was the same move. But it was nice to see Callis really point out the difference. It was nice to see Okada kind of fight from beneath. And you haven't really seen that out of him since... Jesus.
That's Jay White.
Yeah. It just, I don't know. The match itself was good and definitely watchable. I just don't want to see it again.
Yeah, I'm trying to understand what you meant by you don't like Jericho's brawling style in NJPW because really he's doing the same thing in AEW as well.
I guess maybe this was a wrong match to put that in, and the match against Omega, it wasn't that bad either. I didn't think it was horrible in this match because it didn't dominate the match like it did in his matches against Naito. Okay.
Well, I thought both matches against Naito were awesome as well, but this to me is probably his worst match in since he made his debut in NJPW.
Much like the Jon Moxley match, I just have a hard time with a title match that's not supposed to be a street fight evolving into a street fight. And this one they at least seem to get back on track and get it back in the ring.
Well, yeah, but I mean, don't you think there's a difference between a veteran like Jericho using psychology to turn it into a street fight and a match just turning into a street fight for no real reason?
Kind of like the Moxley match was.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Yeah. And there is a difference.
I thought you and I agreed that the Jericho versus Naito match from last year's Dominion was awesome.
Yeah, with the match. And I thought his psychology with it, with coming in and beating the holy hell out of Naito before the bell, was brilliant.
Right.
That was brilliant. But once the bell rings and you're spending 5 to 6 minutes outside the ring hitting him with a table, it gets a little bit too much. I understand, the going outside the ring and throwing a guy over the guardrail, and maybe set up a table and it gets smashed a little bit later on, or a chair shot, or rolling back the padding and hitting something on the cement. I get all that, but when you're out there for 4 or 5 minutes going up and down the ramp and setting up tables and throwing people into tables and setting up more tables, and there's just a clear disregard for the count out stipulation, that's when it gets to be a little much. 35, 40, 50 seconds outside the ring, great. 5 minutes, I start to have an issue.
Well, maybe we shouldn't do an ECW show because you probably hate all the ECW matches then.
No, the ECW matches I love because that was the stipulation. That's the way an ECW match was supposed to be done.
All right.
All right, so let's do this. What's becoming a much longer list of plugs. We've got now YouTube, and I'm going to see how that worked out. We're just listening to it on YouTube. It's just another avenue, another place for you to get to listen to the content. It sounds like all of the shows are going to be uploaded to YouTube going forward, and I'll double check and make sure that everything is going okay with that. Facebook, search for Kingdom of Honor on Facebook. It's a skull wearing a crown, standing or in front of a ring, and we post content on there, and we love to hear from fans. So it's great when you guys message us on Facebook. You can follow me on Twitter at RegiCoop. You can follow Shane at ZanmanLOP, or hashtag Kingdom of Honor is probably the best way to get to us. Just use the hashtag Kingdom of Honor, all one word. And, we answer questions on there. We've got Ryan, who, again, I want to thank you for the Patreon subscription, Ryan Evans. And he went to our Patreon site where we have different tiers. It's www.patreon.com/Kingdom of Honor. And, we've got a $5 tier that is all of our archive shows. We've got a $7.50 tier that is all of our non-wrestling shows. So far, we've done one episode of a comic book, Thor, God of Thunder, and we're going to do the next episode on the next arc of that comic book. And then we've also got our Wrecked with Wrestlers series, which is in our $10 tier. And if we take one wrestler, we examine their careers, basically, is the way that one works out. So, join our Patreon site. It helps us out, and prizes and stuff are coming for subscribers, and you get a lot of not heard anywhere else content. So I think that was it. Oh, and you can also email us at kingdomofhonor123@gmail.com. We love getting questions and stuff from there as well. So
absolutely.
Did I get them all?
So, I think you did. So this coming Monday, we're going to talk about Code Red and A Night You Can't Miss, which were the two most recent big TNA shows. I'm sorry, Impact shows on Impact Plus. And we'll try. And I'm going to try to get some more of Impact watching in between there, but I don't know how much I'm going to get done. And then we probably will also do like a brief preview of Ring of Honor's next pay-per-view, which is Best in the World. We'll probably at least talk about the world title match, the TV title match, and the tag match between the Briscoes and Colt Cabana and Nick Aldis. So, that's what we have coming up on tap for you. Other than this coming Thursday on our Patreon, Wednesday or Thursday, we will be talking about Eddie Guerrero and, like Jeff said, the next arc of the Thor series. So, That's all. Make sure you stay tuned to the other LOP radio shows. Tomorrow we have Global Impact, the Revolution. Or, I'm sorry, just the Global Revolution now. On Wednesday we have Sports Entertainment is Dead. On Thursday, the Perfect 10 Wrestling Podcast. On Friday, The Right Side of the Pond. On Saturday, we have All About All Elite. And then, like I said, we'll be back with you on Monday. Until next time, that's all we've got. We'll try to do better next time. And this is Shane saying long days, pleasant nights. And Jeff saying...
Goodbye.
G1 Climax 27. Goodbye. And good night. Bang.